Next, I'd like to introduce Ryan G. Wilson, who's the Interim Director of User Experience for Bitovi. He's been with us for over 3 years and has been a strong advocate for generalist UX practices. And UX folks know the value of what they do, but getting the client on board is a seeing is believing exercise. So in his talk, Ryan's going to show us how including stakeholders in the discovery phase of a project builds trust and proves the value of UX practitioners on the project.
So hi, I'm Ryan. I love all things UX. So let's talk about a great client wow moment from a recent UX discovery phase that I completed. I was introduced to the stakeholder a couple of years ago. No matter how we pitched it, we couldn't get him to approve any user experience work for his project. His reasoning was often and commonly something that we usually see. The client had a perception that UX reviews cost too much and he wanted to keep his costs down. UX costing too much is not the case. The client didn't completely understand that UX is not just making their app look pretty. The client thought that UX methods would take a long time. In fact, UX can fit within and parallel existing timelines. And the client didn't completely understand the benefits of doing UX work alongside of development, no matter how we pitched it. So the project went forward and we built his application, and we ran into the typical issues when jumping, when jumping into a build, like finding unknowns as we build, missing features as we build, and feature creep from the stakeholder. After we completed the first phase of the application, the stakeholder had an idea for a companion application. So he and I had a meeting and we discussed the viability of his new concept. Because of the limited funding, the stakeholder again didn't want to move forward on a discovery phase. So after I collected all of the information that I thought I needed to start, I decided to go rogue and to work through my thoughts in the form of a user flow. So to create a user flow, I dip into my mind palace, which is why this is all Sherlock themed, to think about each interaction the user might take and what features the application will need to offer to accomplish all possible tasks. User flows are just one of the tools in the UX toolbox that I like to use in a discovery phase. A user flow is essentially a flowchart that imagines every interaction a user can take in an application. User flows are a short time investment to explore the needs of an application. In 1 hour, I was able to create a document to walk the stakeholder through the vision of what I had for his application. This exercise also quickly generated questions and considerations for additional features that I saw were needed. So here you see an example of a user flow as a hand-drawn sketch. I prefer to start most of my UX processes using paper and pencil, or over the past year, a stylus and tablet. Sketching is powerful, it's fast, it's accessible, it's easy to modify. Sketching gives you the feeling that you don't have to be married to any specific idea and that you can erase or cross out what isn't working or quickly pivot to new ideas or concepts. I start at how a user will enter an application. From there, everything forks to a different page or section of the application. It identifies global interactions and how we will need to pass information. Sketching through the hows and whats uncover gaps and ideas, leading to questions to ask the stakeholder. The visual artifact provides a nice overview to walk the stakeholder or anyone else on the project through all the paths the user might take and all of the details we need to build an application. Once I had something to walk through with the stakeholder, I set up a meeting and presented the information and asked the questions that I had found. Next is my favorite part. The stakeholder was very open to my presentation. Holy blank, this is amazing. This is because this is a family-friendly presentation. You found this in an hour? And I never considered the things that you'd found. The stakeholder approved of iterating through several more versions of user flows. This is version 2, and this is version 3, and version 4. In 4 iterations, we'd refined the application concept into a ready-to-build roadmap for the first phase, including what groups and components needed to be built, and what components and styles could be reused from the existing application. And I created a phase 2 version of the user flow, highlighting open questions and considerations that needed to be made or answered in the first phase. This research was completed in little under 2 days, with the stakeholder providing additional information and working intermittently with the developer to discuss feasibility and functionality. After a short pause, phase 1 has been built without encountering any unknowns, without finding any missing features, and without feature creep requests from the stakeholder. The user flow allowed us to outline what needed to be built first and prioritize what features and components will take more time to build, define project phases, and help the client prioritize his funding. And all this in a very short amount of time. So we do user flows as well as utilize all UX Toolbox methodologies for our clients. If you want to find out more about what UX services Bitovi offers, check out bitovi.com/UX-design-consulting. Or if you're interested in how Bitovi can help you out with your user experience, like a short discovery phase on your project or training on certain UX methodologies, please feel free to contact me over email, ryan@bitovi.com, or reach out on our Bitovi community Slack in the design channel. Oh, or you can direct message me. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
Was it really an hour, or was it like that hour that you like bill an hour, but it was maybe a little longer than an hour? Or did you really find all that in 1 hour?
No, that was really just an hour's worth of exploration.
You're a machine.
Oh, thank you.
Ryan, if somebody else wants to start doing their own user flows, are there like resources you would recommend?
Yes. Well, first of all, to reiterate, we can be brought on to train you. There's also several books that I could recommend that I don't have in front of me right now. But if you want to offline me, I can get you those references.
Ryan, I have a question. When
Yes,
do
sir.
you, so it looked like, okay, for your first, like, starting off with just drawing things, you mentioned the like pros of that, and that totally makes sense. When do, like in your slides, it went from like a first phase of drawing and then iterations of like a more formalized flow in drawings and what have you. Is that something you typically do, or do you try and iterate as much as possible in the like kind of drawing phase, or like when do you make that transition from just scribbling down things to actually like putting something formally together in a tool?
Great question. It really depends. My personal preferences are when major questions start to be answered, then I move more towards digital, because then things tend to be more concrete. And so as you iterate through the user flows, you can then reuse the last version as the base. Whereas if you're sketching, you're either starting from scratch or doing a lot of duplication and erasing and scratching over. So yeah, once concepts become more concrete, I move more towards a digital realm. And value-wise, clients tend to see more value in the digital user flow than the sketch user flow. But the benefits of speed and output far outweigh the digital, in my opinion.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Do you have a tool that you prefer to use for making the more digital formalized?
I bounce between two different. So we heavily use Acture at Bitovi. But I've been doing a lot more user flow stuff in Sketch these days, because there's a lot of Sketch resources out there that make it just as quick as Acture.
Cool.
Is Sketch like an iPad app? You mentioned using like a stylus, or is it just a
Oh
Mac?
no, I draw in notes on the iPad to sketch out, but Sketch, the application, I wish there was an iPad version. I think that's been requested since they launched a few years ago.
Cool.